From the far reaches of space to the darkest places on Earth, join us as we explore the haunted, the cryptid, the creepy, and more. Exposing Reality Radio presents the Spectral Wolfpack Show, your paranormal nightmare, with your host, Alexander Bobble.
A lot of awesome stuff coming up. We've got the collaboration with Just Paranormal, Wake Paranormal, Epic Paranormal, and Spectral Wolfpack Paranormal coming up next weekend, actually. And that's going to be insane. We got a super crazy location. We've been there once before, and it was just amazing last time we were there. Some crazy stuff went down. Tonight, though, I've got a very special guest. We've got Zach Starrich is a 23-year-old from Crab Orchard, Illinois. He is a cattle farmer first and a cryptozoologist second, co-founder and team leader of the Southern Illinois Monster Hunters, and host of Backwoods Investigations on YouTube. He studies the behavior and habits of Sasquatch. He's also a lifelong outdoorsman who hunts, fishes, and traps. And I've got his links to his pages in the description, and I'm going to bring him in right now. What's up, Zach?
Not much, dude. How about yourself?
I slaughtered the last name, didn't I?
That's okay. I've had worse people called me Starrick, the German pronunciation, and some of them call me Starwick. And I'm like, this ain't Spiderwick Chronicles, dude.
It's Starrick. You told me just a few minutes, not even a few minutes ago. And when I got to it, I went blank, you know. I was like, shit. That's great.
You're cool, bro. You're good.
Hey, thanks, man. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. Like, how'd you get into all this kind of cryptozoology and monsters and things like that?
Well, it started at a very early age. It started where my mom, she took me to the drive-in movie and everything growing up, and she kept me interested in the old school monsters like Dracula by Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff playing Frankenstein the Mummy, Lon Chaney Jr. playing the Wolfman. And it started with the old Hollywood monsters from the Depression era. And that's where it all started. Growing up, I'd always had a curiosity for very strange things, and if it was something that left more to be found, I would dig and dig and dig until I actually found what it was that I was seeking. And it started off for me, whenever I had my first encounter, whenever I was 9 years old, trying to figure out what it was and find out and have closure, and trying to find out what it was that I heard. And over the course of the coming years, it turned into an obsession of, Sasquatch isn't on the other side of the world in the Himalayas. It's not only in British Columbia, it's usually going to be right in your backyard and right outside your door. So it went from trying to have
movies and things when they did, which kind of sparked their interest in monsters and then on to, the cryptids and cryptozoology. Tell us a little bit about that experience when you were a kid. You said you heard some strange sounds, or?
Yeah, I was 9 years old at the time, and me and my dad had just come back from St. Louis. I was in Randolph County, Illinois, and we just got home from St. Louis from a Cardinals game. And it was a night game. It was very late. It was about midnight when we got home. And we was in the built-on garage that's built onto the house. We parked outside, come in the back door, and as we was getting ready to go inside, the coyotes started taking off with their howling. And then out of the whole pack, there was a big blood-curdled screaming of a howl. That just chilled me to the bone, and I about ripped the door off the hinges trying to get in the house. I was 9 years old at the time, and I couldn't even duplicate the scream. I mean, it was just ungodly, bone-chilling. And it would be quite a while later on. It would be almost 10 years later that I would actually find anything remotely similar to that cry that I heard that night. And I played it for my dad, and my dad is a non-believer. He says what I do as a cryptozoologist is a waste of time, and that I need to, quote-unquote, get a real job. And I say, well, I've got a real job working my tail off every day. This is just a hobby. Mm-hmm. But it's naysayers like my dad that is the fire in my belly that keeps me going and everything, because if I didn't have a drive and a motivational force, I would have given this up a long time ago. Yeah. And it was just, it started from that, hearing the cry of the Sasquatch for the first time. And I was 9 years old, but it would be almost nearly 11, 12 years later before I'd actually have my first face-to-face encounter with a Sasquatch.
Wow. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was, this was back in 2015. I had got a call about 5 o'clock in the morning from my neighbor, and they said, hey, Zach, your cattle's out again. And he called me about 5:30, and I threw on my clothes and I took off, and I took my shotgun with me because it was right in the beginning of August, and I took it for protection, and not only that, it was squirrel season like it is now. And it's been in my house from where the cattle was. And there's a Russian olive grove, and if you've heard of Russian olive trees, you'll know what I'm talking about. The real big bush, they spread like wildfire, and they grow in abundance. They'll engulf your property if they're not contained. Mm-hmm. I was cutting through a little bit of a grove like that, and this little clearing, and everything was still going. The birds were singing, the squirrels were squawking at each other, crickets were still chirping, the frogs were still croaking. Everything was fine, and all of a sudden it just shut off like it does before a tornado. And right when everything just shut off and it went dead silent, I started really paying attention, because what I call my hunter sense kicked in. You know, you're more alert, your senses are more on heightened alert. Yeah. I was starting to pay attention, and I heard something coming through the Russian olive trees behind me. And I had a 20-gauge shotgun with me at the time with the number 6 steel shot. Mm-hmm. And something comes through these trees, and I hollered, "Tell me who you are." I thought it was someone that was trespassing on this property. Yeah. And I said, it just kept coming towards me. I said, "Tell me who you are. I got a gun. I'll shoot." And all of a sudden it stopped, and the top of this Russian olive tree just started shaking real violently. And I mean, it was shaking so bad that the leaves were coming off of this Russian olive tree. Wow. Those things never come off. Those things might as well be glued on. And it was just shaking real violent. And I said, "Tell me who you are, I'll shoot you. I'll shoot." And it just stopped, and you could hear something thrashing and coming towards me. So I popped around in the barrel, and I shot in the air, and then that's when all cane broke loose, and you could see this creature run out of the Russian olive grove not 30 feet from me to my left. And it took off running down the hill towards the creek. And by that time, it started going over the hill, I turned and I ran back to the house. And the description I can give you at daybreak, it was still light out, but it was still fairly a little bit dark, but it was black in color, about 7 to 8 feet tall, and weighed, I want to estimate, between 400 to 600 pounds.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, what other creature could shake a tree like that? You know, like...
It's like, especially on a Russian olive tree, those things sprout thorns, too, that can be about an inch long. Mm-hmm. It's got to be something that knows what to watch out for, so that way it doesn't stick its hands or gets itself cut up on the thorns.
Yeah. And I've heard other reports about them shaking the trees like that, definitely. You think that's an intimidation tactic?
I believe so. In my research that I've done, like you said, whenever you were introducing me, I studied the behavior of intimidation factor. It stems from stage one of throwing objects at you, 2, making vocalizations, and 3, whenever they actually show themselves and they actually charge, a bluff charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've had all 3 of them happen to me before.
Wow. Yeah, I can't say I've ever been bluff charged yet.
Well, I was charged it was last year, in April of last year. I was on a night investigation. It was right whenever the hot part of summer was starting. And whenever it's real hot out during the summertime, I conduct a lot of my investigations at night.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go out and I'll call blasts. I'll film at night. I'll set recorders out all night long.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to a point in this investigation, I stopped to take a breather. And I was taking notes in my journal and my notepad that I had in my pocket of what I'd seen that night, what I'd heard. Took some pictures of the area that night, and I was going over to see if I caught anything on camera I hadn't seen, because I've got a bad habit of missing stuff I catch on camera.
Oh, yeah.
So I was double checking everything, and I shut everything off, picked my lantern up, and I put a dip of Copenhagen in my lip, and I started off walking. I was talking to myself, making a mental note of everything. Mm-hmm. And a big tree come down, I want to say about 100 feet away behind me, and it was a full moon that night. You could hear something come off the bank and cannonball that creek, and you could see it come up out of the creek in the moonlight, and it was chasing me. And I want to say probably about 1.5 miles from the house in my research area.
Wow. And
I called some backup. I called my mom, who lived up the road, and I said, "Get down here and get me. I'm down here in the draw. I've got a Bigfoot on my butt, and they are mad. Get down here now." Wow. And you could see the thing come across the second creek and up out of the tree line, and by then I was gone. I was running like devils after me out. Mm-hmm. And I got to where the property line was, and it's a 5-strand barbed wire fence that stands about 5 feet tall, and I cleared that thing and I high jumped it. Wow. And I got up underneath the road in the concrete culvert, and I got right up underneath the road in that culvert, right in the middle. Yeah. And I started shining my flashlight at both ends, and I had my knife right there, because if one of those things was going to try to come in there after me, I wasn't going down without a fight.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. That's intense, man. And yeah, I bet your adrenaline was going. That probably helped you jump that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 5'9", I weigh 240 pounds. It takes a lot to get this body airborne.
I understand. Yeah, I have a hard time to. Did anything else happen, or did it get quiet after that?
It got quiet, and I heard my mom coming over the hill, and I was down in a wash, and you could hear her laying on the horn, and in between laying on the horn and letting off the horn, you could hear stuff scatter in the woods. Wow. And she stopped right up on top of the area I was at, and I come out of the other side of the culvert, and I scrambled up the soapstone that they had sitting there on the side of the road, and make like a little incline for the wildlife to climb up to get across the road. And I jumped in the Jeep, and I said, "Get me out of here." And she got me back to my truck. I was a half mile away from my truck when this all happened. She dropped me off of my truck, and I was in such a hurry to get home, I passed her on the way home with the pedal on the floor.
Wow. Yeah, definitely an encounter.
I didn't go back in the woods for a month.
Yeah, I bet. Wow. That's intense. Definitely. Have you ever heard the what they call the samurai chatter? Have you ever heard anything like that out in the woods?
One time, and it was actually the same night that I got chased out of the woods. There's an area on my property that's the focal point of my research, my field research, and I call it Sasquatch Hollow. And it's this little stretch of meadows that one part of it runs north to south and one part runs east to west at the southernmost end. Mm-hmm. And there's bluffs on both sides, and there's creeks that run along the east to west stretch and the north to south stretch that converge at the southernmost point. And I crossed the creek from at the southernmost point to the east to west side, and I got down in there, and whenever I sat down and I was going over everything, I was hearing a broken dialect being spoken around me. Mm-hmm. And it was, it wasn't no language I ever heard. I've heard French, German, Polish, Russian, Spanish. I've heard Scottish, Canadian French, Spanish. I've heard a lot of languages, even Italian. I've never heard anything that sounded remote. This didn't sound remotely like any of them. Yeah. It was a language all its own.
Yeah, I actually recently had an experience where I started hearing something like that, and some people in my live stream were saying it kind of sounded like to them like some kind of native language mixed with, like, when I brought up the samurai chatter, they were like, yeah, it kind of did sound like that. Yeah, it's very strange. Do you think that's how they communicate with each other, or what do you think about that?
Well, I believe they have multiple ways over their hunting when they're stalking their, because I believe them to be ambush hunters as well as hunter-gatherers. I believe that every vocalization they make has a meaning to it, whether it's a whoop or it's a long drawn-out howl or if it's a whistle. I believe that every little thing that they do has some significant meaning for communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. What do you think about the wood knocks? Do you think that's like for them warning others that we're coming in the area, or because usually I notice I'll hear it when I come into an area or when I'm leaving an area. And
a perfect example. I went and I set out a recorder Saturday night on a friend of mine's land. I went fishing with him and his family where they was camping out on their property. And they use the same property for deer hunting. And they had been in there and clearing out and fixing food plots and everything and seeding the ground to get ready for this upcoming deer season. We went down this first trail, and I set my digital recorder out at around 8 o'clock that night, and I didn't pick it up till about maybe 11, 12 o'clock whenever I left. Mm-hmm. And I sat there around the campfire while we was waiting on something for us to snag on our fishing poles down by the water. I was listening to it, and me and my partner were sitting there listening to the recording, and I heard something on there, and I hollered at him. I said, "John, come listen to this." And he come over and listened, and you could hear a wood knock, just a single wood knock, and this was less than 5 minutes after we had left the area.
Yeah.
And it was just a single wood knock, and I believe they was given the wood knock, they were saying, they're gone, it's all clear.
Yep, that's what I think too.
And I was talking to him a little bit later on that night, and about an hour later, we got another wood knock. But leading up to that wood knock, you could hear the four-wheelers going by. Mm-hmm. And wow. About 4 minutes after the four-wheelers went by up on the main trail, you could hear another wood knock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then I went and you could hear us coming in to pick up to the digital recorder, and you could hear a faint whoop.
Yep. I've been noticing
and then
that
it
too.
just went silent until I ended the recording.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing stuff. Cause like, I've noticed similar things, like with the whoops, with the wood knocks. You know, my neighbor's dogs go crazy whenever I do a podcast. It seems like, I don't know if you can hear them, but someone in the chat wanted to know, what are your views on Bigfoot? Like, do you see it as more of a spectral creature, or, you know, flesh and blood?
Oh, definitely flesh and blood, but that's just my opinion. In my 23 years, I have found that you have to keep an open mind whenever it comes to everything, and it does. And just like one of my rules, I give a presentation on the 27th of July at the local library, and one of my top 10 rules to be a good researcher is don't be so quick to pass judgment on someone else. Just because it sounds far-fetched to you doesn't mean it ain't true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, in my personal opinion, we're dealing with a flesh and blood creature here. If it's people have hit them with cars, some people have said to have shot them, some said that they've broken into their deep freezers and broken into their hunting cabins.
Mm-hmm.
If it's able, if it's able to do all that, it's able to bleed, it's able to be killed. But I'm a no-kill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using that as an example. So that's where I base my belief that they are flesh and blood creatures. But I do believe that they do have, in the same sense, a spiritual significance.
Yeah.
With Native American legend, you hear them being guardians of the forest, the Great Spirit bringing down these guardians to guard the wildlife. Of course, back then, what they didn't understand, they believed it to become from the Great Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, I've got Shawnee, Illini, and Cherokee in me, I just found out.
Wow.
A couple of weeks ago. And I do believe that Sasquatch has a certain spiritual significance to it. Not meaning that's a spectral that can go in and out of portals, it can mind speak and cloak and all that. I mean, we're not dealing with the predator here. We're dealing with something that has a heightened intelligence more than we give it credit for.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't cloak, it's just a master of its domain. It's a master of camouflage. It can blend itself in, like, and you probably bear witness to this. You go out walking late at night or during the day, and you shine the light 5 foot in front of you at night, and you see eyes, and it's a white-tailed deer.
Yep. Definitely.
They'll stand right there, and they'll bed down and they'll hunker down real tight, and you could be right up on them, and they won't make a peep.
Yep. Yep, I agree with that. I think they're definitely masters of their environment. I mean, that's where they've lived, you know, since before.
Well, I mean, they live their whole life in the woods. Mm-hmm. When we go into the woods, we're going into their house.
Yeah. Sorry for anyone listening if we cut out anything. I'm not sure what's going on with my internet, but hopefully that didn't cut out while we were talking about that. We have another question here. We have found human remains in all types of weather and terrain conditions, even dinosaur bones. Why do you think we haven't found any Bigfoot bones?
Okay, I can answer that real easy. Coyotes and wolves. Mm-hmm. They're scavengers. They'll go in, especially like with anything, like perfect example out here, we got coyotes and we have turkey buzzards. Turkey buzzards will go and start circling an animal before it's even dead. They will attack it, and then they will go and attack the eyes, and then they'll proceed to feed on it while the prey is still alive. Then you got the coyotes that'll come in there and they'll tear the whole carcass apart, and they'll tear the ligaments apart that's holding the bones together and rip bones out of joints. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, you got 5 or 10 dozen bones scattered over an area. And I can give you a perfect example. I've lost cattle here this last year, and we had a cow die of natural causes. She died of natural causes. It took them 2 weeks to eat her down to the bone. And where she was at, had we not looked good enough and thoroughly enough, we would have never found her.
Mm-hmm.
She was laying down in a creek underneath some deadfall. And she got up in there and she laid up and died. Like any animal will do, if it knows that its time is up, it will go away and it'll hide, so that way it can just die and go in peace. But you got to pay more attention to it. You just can't go out there expecting to find a body. You actually got to be willing to put the work in to actually, look and see if there's possibility. But then you got to factor in wildlife being involved, like with coyotes and wolves. Coyotes and wolves will take those bones and they'll chew on them.
Oh, yeah.
Rodents like a rat, a rabbit, a squirrel, a mouse, they'll go and they'll chew those bones up and try and get to the bone marrow. They'll eat those bones up to pretty much there's nothing left but powder, trying to get all that bone marrow. And not only that, you got to factor in the wolves and the coyotes that are ripping those carcasses apart after they're long dead. They'll scatter those bones everywhere, and you'll probably have a whole skeleton scattered in very finely over a 200-foot square foot area.
Yeah, because when I go in the woods, very rarely, I'll find maybe a bone here, a bone there, but I don't think I've ever found just a full carcass out in the woods that hadn't been torn apart. Like I might find a skull, and that's it, or something like that. But I guess some people believe that they bury their own kind too. What do you think about that?
I think they do too. They do that as well, but the ones they can't get to, that's the only ones they can get to in time before scavengers start coming in and feeding on the carcass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been finding these strange mounds out in the one area I've been going in, and I'm wondering if there's Native American burials back there or something, but I don't know. It's interesting. But what do you think about the government cover-ups and things like that? Do you think that could have anything to do with the bodies? Because I've heard of people finding bodies. One guy even said he saw one on the side of the road, and then when he drove back, it was gone already. Just things like that. What do you think about government cover-up or anything like that?
I believe so too. Of course, you and me were at the ECBRO conference both days,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know if you were there during the Q&A that we had the first day, whenever Mike Miller, Mike Feltner, and Ed Brown touched on the subject of how the government knows about Bigfoot. If Bigfoot was to make headline mainstream news and we had a picture of a legitimate corpse, animal activists would come out of the woodwork
mm-hmm.
and want it to be classed as a endangered species. That would shut down all the state parks.
Mm-hmm.
It would shut down the logging industry, and our economy would crumble within a matter of months.
Yep. Yeah, I got to agree with that because, that one case with that owl in California, I think it was, that really destroyed the logging industry there, and a lot of people lost jobs and everything like that. So,
oh yeah, all those companies that had been built over decades were destroyed overnight.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I wonder, God, it's all just so crazy because I guess the Bigfoot probably don't want anything to do with us, after seeing what we've done to other nations and things in the past, that I guess they hide so well from most of us. But I don't know, it's all crazy.
Well, I believe that the ones that we do see that is being reported, it's the younger ones.
Mm-hmm.
You know how whenever, of course, whenever you're young in age, like as a human, pre-adult, or a young adult or a teenager, you're curious about things. You want to go out and experience things. You want to sow your wild oats, as the saying goes.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to experience all these new things. But it's the young ones, I believe, that we're having these encounters with in the woods and on the side of the road and everything. But it's the older ones that we're really rarely seeing, because they've already been there. Basically, the way I put it, been there, done that, got the T-shirt. They've experienced it, and they don't want nothing to do with it, and they try to avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah, that would make
Just
sense.
some of them are better than others.
Mm-hmm. That makes me think about this one cryptid that people see in Alabama, the Alabama white thing. I wonder sometimes if that's an older Sasquatch, or just with the white hair, or an albino maybe. I'm not sure.
It's possible. I mean, it's like 1 out of a million chance that anything albino, whether it's an albino person, coon, deer, turkey, lion, tiger, it's a 1 in a million chance. So it could be an albino Bigfoot, and it's just probably like the most rarest of its kind.
Yeah, I've heard. Have you heard of some having like disabilities and deformities and things like that too? Because I've heard.
Oh yeah, like the crippled foot of Bosburg, Washington. I've heard about that one. The one where it had polio. I guess they diagnosed it with in the foot from where they did the bone structure reconstruction on the cast.
Wow. Yeah, I heard about one that this lady described that it appeared to have like Down syndrome or something, and it was just looked kind of different than the others, and that she had supposedly living on her property. And I think my friend said he captured some interesting vocalizations out there. I haven't been able to listen to him yet, but I need to go over to his. He keeps like his private. A lot of people keep their like private collection of evidence and everything, So.
Well, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that mentally handicapped Bigfoot could exist. We've seen it happen in the primates, the primate world, with gorillas and chimps and orangutans and gibbons and bonobos. They've all been slow. Shorthand the phrase, they're a little slow mentally, and intelligence-wise, they're slow to react.
Yeah.
It's the same way with humans. I mean, I have a form of autism called Asperger's, and it causes me to have trouble processing things. I process things differently than most people would. I have to have some assistance with handling complex things and stuff like that, complex situations. I need to have assistance with that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I say stuff and random stuff off a wall. I mean, I'll use me as a perfect example that there could be Bigfoot out there that have autism or other mental handicap.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Awesome. Yeah. One more thing, and then I want to touch on some of the other cryptids that have been sighted in Illinois. But what do you think about tree structures and other things like that?
Well, there's so many theories out there, but I'll give you what mine is. The teepee structure, I believe it to be a territory marker. Usually some of the tree structures I found, the teepee structures, are usually right along the roadways, not far off the road into the tree line.
Yeah.
I find this to be, from what reports that I found in the area, the bigger the teepee structure, the bigger the alpha male is in the area. I found in my one area, there was a tree structure I found that was I measured it 12 feet tall at the peak. Wow. And in that same area a year before, I encountered a Bigfoot that I estimated to be about 10 feet tall.
Wow. That's huge too, but definitely there was one about 10 to 12 feet tall sighted here too, near Chelsea, Alabama, and they described it as having like red hair. But I've noticed that too with right off the road. I'm always looking and just seeing some really interesting stuff right off the road, and like places where I think they might cross and things like that. Very interesting stuff. What do you think about the X structures?
I find that to mean, stay out. This is a important area to the clan that's in the area. I mean, I've found X's in the woods, and I'll go past those X's, and I'll see stuff that is out of the ordinary. Mm-hmm. I'll find hiking like a very trodden down path that'd be about 4 feet wide, and there's actually dirt where all around it is grass. So I believe it's saying, stay out. This is our area.
Yeah, I've definitely
this area is sacred.
Found very similar stuff, and Daniel, ECBRO, we were comparing some pictures of some things we had found, and it was very similar, even though he lives in Virginia and I live in Alabama. It's just interesting how there's similar stuff almost everywhere that you go, where these, or like you said, in your backyard even. And then I don't know, I saw some awesome footprints at that convention. It was great. So tell us a little bit about some of the other cryptids. I know you had some at your booth at ECBRO, but tell us about some of those, because those I don't think a lot of the people in the chat have heard of some of those.
Illinois, and I'll just say this out there, there's more out there than just a Sasquatch. Mm-hmm. Every state has other cryptids that's significant to those states. We have the Piasol bird, which is an Illini cryptid that stems from Illini legend. It stands for, whenever it's translated from Illini to English, it means bird that devours men.
Wow.
And that creature was kind of like a chimera, a mix of all kinds of animals from the animal kingdom. Mm-hmm. And it lived in a cave outside of Alton, Illinois, that overlooked the Mississippi River. Well, it terrorized the local Illini tribes in the area for generations. And the thing, it would go and it would eat wildlife, but once it tasted human flesh, it wouldn't eat nothing else. It would pick up a fully grown Illini native in its claws and take it back to its cave.
Wow.
So the local chief decided that, we've had enough. We need to do something about it. So he prayed to the Great Spirit, and the Great Spirit told the chief, said, take 20 of your strongest braves and their arrows and bows and go to its cave. So the chief stood out in the open while the braves were up on the ledge above the cave. And when the creature come out to take flight, and it was getting ready to swoop down on the chief, they opened up on that thing and they shot it full of arrows, and it flew across the Mississippi River into Missouri, and it died.
Wow.
And there's actually, if you ever go to Alton, Illinois, there is a mural of the Piasol. There was a French explorer back in the early 1800s that says that they found the cave of the Piasol bird, and it was littered with human bones, like over 4,000 bones.
Damn. That's wild.
And Then we have Nellie the lion, which is Southern Illinois' equivalent to the Wampus beast.
Yeah.
It is a phantom panther that can materialize in and out of spirit form. People have been attacked by this creature. It's actually already recorded that this thing has been responsible for the deaths of 2 people in the last 200 years.
Wow.
And they actually made a bounty for this monster, I think back in the early 1900s. They made the bounty of $200, and that bounty still stands today.
Wow. That's awesome.
Then there is the Big Muddy Monster, which was reported on Monsters and Mysteries in America. It happened back in the 70s around Riverside Park in Murfreesboro, Illinois. That's only about 45 minutes from my house, where this couple that was having an affair on both their spouses, they went to Riverside Park to the Lover's Lane out there, and the thing come up to the car. Well, they made a report of it to the local police department. These were people, that were well respected in the town of Murfreesboro, and they were having an affair on both their spouses. It took something really scary that they were concerned for the public about to go to the police department together. And the police department sent out 2 officers to investigate it, and they found prints along the bank of the Big Muddy River. And they heard a scream out in the night, and it scared one of the police officers so bad that he left his gun on the ground, and he wouldn't even go back and get it.
Wow. Yeah, that's intense.
Then there was the Thunderbird. The Thunderbird of Alton, Illinois, especially down around Goreville, Illinois, which is just north of my research area, about a mile. There was a report of a Thunderbird October 30th of last year, handed to me by a cross-country truck driver.
Yeah.
He was on his way from Texas to Detroit, and he was hauling a load up Interstate 57. He went and he saw a Thunderbird fly over the northbound lane of Interstate 57.
Yeah. I would love to see one. I've never seen a Thunderbird, but I love the story.
And then we've had our fair share of UFO encounters. We have had Dogman encounters. We have had alien encounters, close encounters of the third kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Definitely.
There's a creature from infield Illinois they call the infield horror, which I class to be a extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
Where a local man shot the creature 3 times with a .22 pistol, and it still took off like it was nothing. He hit it center mass 3 times with a .22, and he's seen it just a week later walking down the railroad tracks just at a easy pace.
Damn. That's yeah, there's just, like you said, so much out there, and even in other states. I mean, there's just so much that a lot of people have never even heard of. That's just insane.
And all these creatures I just told you about, they're all just right here in the 618 area code.
Yeah, and the way that you find out about some of these is by talking to, like, the elders and older people in the communities. Like, that's where I've heard about the Alabama White thing and everything, and the Slough thing, and just these monsters that people have seen in the woods and around those areas. My friend Prehistoric Matt is in the chat, and I remember at the ECBRO there was that anteater type creature, and
the Tuttle Bottoms monster.
He had actually seen something similar to that in Iowa, but tell us about that one.
Okay, well, the Tuttle Bottoms monster is supposed to be like an anteater, but it's got the build of a bear with the head of an anteater. But instead of having a little tongue at the end, the whole snout opens up like a gator mouth. Mm-hmm. Tuttle Bottoms is just a couple miles north along the middle fork of the Saline River that flows through Dorris Heights, Illinois, a little suburb of Harrisburg, Illinois, just 15 miles from here. Back in the 60s, they used Tuttle Bottoms as the local lover's lane where people would go, the kids would go to make out and drink and party. Well, there were several reports to the local sheriff there in Harrisburg on the Harrisburg PD, and from whenever he took over till the time he retired in 1999, there was well over 50 reports made in his time as Harrisburg sheriff.
That's a lot.
And the creature was seen stalking cars. It was seen fishing down in the Saline Fork River. Mm-hmm. It was seen by farmers going across agricultural fields. Of course, people go and were going and looking for this thing, and the sheriff had no lost count of how many times he'd went out there, and there'd be mafia people, city slickers out there with guns looking for this thing, and he'd break them up and send them home. Yeah. And it was just causing such a mass hysteria in that area that people were scared to go to Tuttle Bottoms. But it showed up for a couple months, and it would disappear, and it would come back every so often, and other reports would be made. But now there hasn't been a report since 1999. Mm-hmm. And some local researcher believes that the creature has either migrated away or has long since died.
Yeah. Wow. It's awesome to just think about these creatures and where they could have came from, or where they went, where they go. Because sometimes they do just seem to, like the sightings, sees, and everything just kind of, maybe it, like you said, maybe it migrated elsewhere or died.
Oh yeah, I mean, whenever there's an abrupt stop, reports in an area, you got to figure either someone has shot and killed the creature and not said anything, someone's hit their car and not known what it was and didn't report it, or the creature has died of natural causes, or it's migrated away.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense that's what would be the answer there.
Oh, there's so many, and then there's so many people that would go and say if there's such an abrupt stop of reports, they'll say, well, someone's hoaxing it, yet they forget to go and realize there's other factors. This creature could have died from natural or unnatural causes, or could have just left the area.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Especially with that many different sightings. I mean, that would have to be a pretty elaborate hoax to get all those people together. And a lot of the people that I've talked to that have sightings are just, normal working class people. No one really too out there or anything. I mean, a lot of people don't even talk about their sightings, because they're afraid of being ridiculed and things like that.
That's the thing. I mean, if you have a sighting and you want to share it with someone like me. I mean, I'm not going to laugh at you. I'm not going to judge you. I keep a very open mind on these things, and I try to help people have a better understanding of what they're seeing. And if I'm not able to, I refer them to someone I know that probably could.
Yeah, I'm the same way on that. With the cryptids and the paranormal stuff as well. Like, if I go do try to help someone with a problem with spirits or something, if I can't figure out how to help them, I will refer them to another person until we can get their issue fixed. And I think that's important when dealing with clients like that and people who need help. We had a couple more questions here. Gwen wanted to know, have you heard about the almas, the Bigfoot-like creatures from Mongolia, or the orang pendeks from Sumatra?
Oh, God, yes. The almas, the orang pendek. Some of the most unique Bigfoot, the orang pendek being one of the smallest reported Bigfoot in the world, also being called the real Hobbit, on an episode of Monster Quest, talking about the orang pendek, the almasty being a very aggressive Bigfoot, which I believe to be just as aggressive, maybe even more aggressive and more deadly than the Ohio grassman.
Mm-hmm. That leads into the next question. Do you think the Bigfoot in the U.S. could be violent or dangerous? So the grassman is said
I
to
know
be...
for a fact that they are.
Yeah. The grassman is said to be very violent.
One encounter happened that I had that ended up getting physical.
Wow. What happened there?
I was on a night hike one night, and it was in the fall of last year. I was out in my research area again. It was pretty foggy that night. It was about this same time of the year last year, and I was just out walking. I had a light with me. I had one of those atomic flashlights that's got the 3 sets on it, and the SOS and the strobe setting on it.
Yeah.
Well, it was so freaking foggy that night that you might as well have been shining that thing in a mirror because all that light was going to refract off of that fog.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just walking along this trail in the bottoms alongside of the hill, and you could hear something come up behind me, and next thing you know, it checked me in the back, right on my right side, and I went straight forward to the ground like a shot. I got whipped into the ground.
Wow.
And you could hear it come up behind me, and it was like step, 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 wham, and you could hear it taking off, running right past me. I don't know if it was being playful or something or not. I mean, because if it was a big one, at the rate these things can run, because I've seen these things hunt. I've been physically touched by these things once. I've kicked one in the leg through the wall of my tent once. I've seen these things mate. I've watched these things pull down deer once. I've watched these things stalk. I've been stalked by these things.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, this thing, even if I'd rather get hit with a 20-pound sledge than get checked by another one of these things, because I was bruised from the top of my shoulder all the way down to the small of my back.
Damn. Yeah, and I mean, if it wanted to kill you, it would have. So I wonder if it, like you said, if it was just playing around or just, checking you out or what.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it knocked the wind out of me and everything. It felt like I fell 20 foot onto my back because it pushed all the wind out of me. And I'm sitting on the ground going, trying to get my wind back.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it hurt. Yeah, I mean, I've been in 5 car wrecks, and it felt just about like getting hit by a airbag.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, that's such a massive creature with... I can't even imagine the strength that it can unleash when it wants to. Like, definitely a scary thought. Because I go out a lot at night too, and when you go out alone and stuff, you never know what might happen. So, do you mostly go out alone too?
Most of the time, yes. It's very rare if I take anybody out with me. Like, just tonight before we started recording, I talked to my grandfather, and I told him I want to take him out one night so that way he'd see what I do, and he said he'd go with me. So it's basically me. My brother used to go with me whenever he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
He'd follow me around the woods before we started the Southern Illinois Monster Huntersm in 2015. Him and me would go out and we'd look for prints and hair, and that's pretty much all we would look for. We'd listen for stuff and try to see one if we were lucky. My mom used to go out with me until she hurt her knee a couple years ago, and she's unable to go hiking anymore. So I'm basically the one that does a lot of the field research, because a lot of the members of my team work for the Department of Transportation, or they're linemen, or they are private contractors, and they work for construction companies, or they're carpenters, or they're still in college.
Yeah. Nice. Just busy lives. It's hard to sometimes it's hard for some people to dedicate a lot of time to this kind of stuff, because it does take a lot of patience and time, and just takes a lot of time, because it is research and it is work, like we said.
Oh yeah.
Well, awesome, man. Well, before we close out here, go ahead and like I said, I put the links to his stuff down in the description, but if you want to go ahead and tell everyone how to find you one more time.
Yeah, if you want to turn in a report, you can go ahead and email it to me at my personal email, BOIMPSIMH@gmail.com. I'm looking for more guests for season 4 of Backwoods Investigations. I'll be starting it back up here in the fall. If anybody listening wants to be on the show, either email me, or you can message me on Facebook at Zach B. Starrick. I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to check us out on YouTube, the Southern Illinois Monster Hunters on YouTube. And you can go ahead and follow us on Facebook. We're always on there. We're trying to upload new content every day and about every week or every month on our YouTube channel. Be sure to find us on there and follow me on Instagram, Real618 Cowboy. You can find a lot of updates there. Just spread the word, and we love hearing from you folks.
That's great, man. And you're going to be at the Tennessee Bigfoot Conference as well, right?
Yep.
Awesome, man. Well, I'll definitely see you there. And thanks so much for coming on and sharing your stories and theories and everything with us.
No problem, dude. It's good to talk to you finally.
Yeah, man. We will definitely chat more at Tennessee. Are you going to be at CryptidCon or Mothman Fest or anything like that coming up?
I plan on being at CryptidCon this next month.
Cool. I'll see you there too then. Awesome, man. We'll have a great night, man.
Yep, you too, dude.
All right, thanks again. We'll talk again soon.
All right, partner. Have a good evening.
All right, you too, man. Thanks.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. Awesome, guys. That was a great show with Zach. I'm going to slaughter his name again. I just know it's Starrick. Starrick. Sorry, guys. It's hot in here. It's hot in here. I got to turn my air unit off so that it doesn't pick up on the mic. But then the neighbor's dogs always try to get on the track as well. So I just can't seem to win with my audio no matter what I do. But thank you guys so much for coming out and listening. It was really awesome. I enjoyed talking about all those theories and just everything like that. It was definitely very interesting, and I think we covered a lot of really cool stuff, and I hope that answered some questions that some of you might have. I know some of you guys have been getting out in the woods yourself and going squatching. So next week we have an awesome guest. We got Tim Woolworth, and he's an ITC researcher. So we're going to get back into the paranormal next week with some ghost box talk and spirit box, ghost box, whatever you want to call it, ITC device. And Tim is very experienced, and he has used a lot of different devices, and I think his collection is pretty impressive. We're gonna rack his brain a little bit for some of the info on what all he likes to use and what his favorite devices and everything like that, methods. So I'm very excited for that. I had a booth across from him at SuperCon, and just kind of, we didn't really talk that much. I think, I'm kind of introverted, so I don't usually talk to people that much. Sometimes. Lately it's been different. I've been coming out of my shell more, but I'm excited to actually get to talk to him. He's a really cool guy, and so stay tuned for that next week. Live streams. I'm still working on the house, cleaning the house this week, so I think we're going to live stream tomorrow night from a cemetery, so be on the lookout for that on the YouTube. And thanks again to Zach Starrick for coming in and talking about Bigfoot and Illinois monsters and cryptids. Alright guys, I forgot to get him to howl, so I'm going to do it for him. All right.